Hi everyone, my name is Simran Hans. I'm going to be moderating today's Q&A. Please welcome, give a big round of applause for the film's director, Naqqash Khalid, and the film's star, Nabhaan Rizwan. That's what we like to hear for the Manchester premiere. We're going to chat for a little bit, and then there'll be an opportunity for audience questions as well. So keep them in your mind, and we'll come to you a little bit later. But Naqqash, let's start with you. When you started thinking about this film, when you dreamed it up, what was the first image that came to mind? The first scene or picture that kind of took root in your imagination?
Oh, that's a good question. How are you guys doing, by the way? You all right? Yes.
Do you guys like the film?
Lots of images, actually. I think the first one that just popped into my mind now, I'm not sure if it's the truthful one, is like the guys with the white t-shirts all kind of cramped into the same room. I remember I had that image before I had the story, and it was just something that sometimes you write around like these images that you have. But yeah, it's like the audition room.
Well, let's kind of talk about that a little bit more, because that audition, these mics are powerful, that audition room and that kind of image of all of these Asian guys all being kind of cattle-called in this room is a really powerful one. Can you talk a little bit about the ideas at the heart of the film and what you wanted to explore through that image?
Yeah, like really early on, I knew that I wanted to write a fairy tale. And I wanted to explore lots of ideas around identity and culture, and it felt like the actor was like the perfect metaphor for that.
Why fairy tales? What's so interesting about fairy tales?
I really love this space between like the real and the unreal, and I don't know, there's just like a tonal quality that a fairy tale has that I think it also has this kind of like duality of being quite dark, but like a little bit whimsical at the same time. So there was that kind of space that I wanted to play in, where I kind of wanted to take, like fairy tales take like moral tales or a moral thing to dissect, but then through such play and kind of whimsy, and I think I wanted to take that mold, and the role of the actor was like just the perfect metaphor for that.
Yeah, and Nabhaan, what did you think when you first read the script for this film? What went through your mind?
I didn't read a script for a while. Naqqash kept his cards close to his chest. No, we had a conversation in the first instance.
So he wooed you without a script?
Yeah, I mean, like,
Have you met me?
yeah, like when he talks and when he wants to transmit like what he wants to put across with the film, and we just talked about film and art for hours. That was our first meeting, and he kind of gave me a little bit of a rundown of what he wanted to do with the film, and he said, I don't really have much of a script right now. I have more of a methodology. And I was like, wow, okay, this is interesting. I'm in. Like, this is like some kind of new experiment.
And what was that methodology? How was that presented to you at the time?
A lot of documents, a lot of Google documents, like 200-page like Google documents, and just the whole like essays about the acts of looking and the act of being looked at. Yeah, these massive like 100-page spreads of just costumes and things like that. So that was like super interesting. It was like an almost, I won't say academic, because that's like maybe a bit reductive, but
Thorough,
a very
maybe.
thorough approach to building a vision. So, and then the script came later.
Yeah, like PowerPoint is my passion, you know.
Yeah, great PowerPoints.
I used to be an academic, so like I had a PowerPoint for everything, and like a Google Drive, and the script was also like quite a strange Word document for a while that had lots of like memes and paintings and like very clean ideas of what it was, and it was like structured like an album. There was a side A and a side B, and every scene was a track, and then it was kind of like an accompanying Tumblr blog of a Google Doc with like all these ideas from like Franz Fanon to like the Simpsons memes, like curated.
It was everything but a film, and then it became a film later.
But if you look at the Google Doc now and you see the film, it tracks, I'd say.
tell us a little bit about translating that vision, that kind of all of these really interesting, knotty, complicated ideas into something that people could kind of follow along with. Because the way you talk about it makes it seem like this really abstract, inaccessible film, and actually it's just a really fun movie, and you can enjoy it in that way as well. So how did you begin to sort of piece together the narrative? Because it doesn't follow a kind of traditional 3-act structure as well. So why did you choose to dispense with that traditional structure, and how did you kind of bring it together?
Yeah, I mean, like two things. I think one thing is when you're in film, you're working with actors and performance as a medium, and as soon as you put the human face on screen, there's a world there, you know? There's their bodies, like their gestures contain a whole world. So a lot of that is in the collaboration with all of the actors, from people who are doing 1-2 days, or to Nabhaan, who like we had prepped for 6 months, where we just really like built this character together. So a lot of that access is coming through what the actors are doing. And I'm a performance-driven director. Everything I do, whether it's a sound choice or a music choice or the color grade, is always about like servicing the performance. And then the other part of that is that was about accessibility. What was the other part of the question? Sorry.
Just how did you bring it all together?
Just like amazing people. You just get the best people, don't you? And then they kind of help you piece it together. And like the best thing about making a film is like, it's not like an individual medium, but like you're not the sole author. Like you're collaborating with all of these amazing people, whether it's conversations you're having in costume about how this t-shirt like fits this character and what it does to their body, or the conversations that we were having. It's such a beautiful collaborative art form that, you know, like 100 people came together to make this film.
Tell us a little bit about those workshops and those conversations when you were building this character together and collaborating. What did those conversations look like? How did you kind of, what conversations did you have to bring the character of Aiden to life?
We had a lot of conversations throughout, and at a certain point I think what's interesting about this character is that he's inherently unknowable, and we wanted to lean into that, and we didn't necessarily want all the answers, but we definitely wanted all the exploration. So Naqqash gave me a really good like background on like why he's called Aiden, and maybe you can speak a little bit about that. And we just kind of built that, and then he still felt unknowable, but we had all this like homework we did on him, and then we just kind of used what came out.
Do you remember that time we sat down for like 10 hours?
Yeah.
And we just
more than one occasion.
Yeah. Well, I would like
that time. It was like every week.
You loved it, right?
Yeah.
You were having fun.
Yeah.
We had like Nabhaan would give me like notes on every scene. Like I would redraft the script, and then we'd kind of like informally workshop it, just talking about all of your ideas on it. And I'd go away and rewrite the script. And then before we shot, we had like a 2-week period where we were working on your walk in the car park, I remember as well at one point. And we just kind of like, it's like you're painting something together, like a miniature almost. And like, I'm facilitating all of this space from the outside, and Nabhaan is like expanding the inside. And my favorite stuff in the film is like, we're rolling, and I'm either writing new dialogue, or you're doing something that's just truly instinctive, and it's not necessarily the plan. And you end up in this like really beautiful new space together, but it's because we had done so much preparation that we were able to do that. And I think a lot of that was just us having quite casual conversations, from what I remember, just like about our lives and our experiences and the kind of art we want to make. And I feel like we kind of like fused into like this. You put it well the last time we did one of these things. We kind of just like, our brains kind of like fused into the same frequency. And I think as a director, that's kind of your job as well. Like all the people you're working with, you're kind of like setting this frequency, and your job is to like get people to tune into it. And when everyone tunes into it, it's kind of like an orchestra, you know, like everyone is like playing the same score, music.
Nabhaan, before you kind of signed up to this film, and before you had that conversation and decided that this project was going to be really interesting, can you tell us a little bit about what kinds of scripts were landing on your desk and what kind of parts?
Oh man.
You were reading.
Oh,
I'd be really interested to have some context for sort of where you were coming from coming into this project?
Yeah, I was in dire straits. No, I wanted to do every genre, so I feel like I was doing my due diligence in that way. But I've not done an independent film. I don't play the lead part in a film. And that wasn't so important to me as just really going deep with something and having that 6 months to build it with Naqqash and like not just be the final instrument in the orchestra, but to be like truly invested and involved. And yeah, it allowed me to just go deep. I know I just said Aiden's inherently unknowable, but I do believe like once you truly know a character, like there is no wrong choices. So knowing that going into it, when we were able to like put so much prep into the role, it just freed me up. So I was kind of at a crossroads with my work, and it landed at a really beautiful time.
And you know, your performance in it is amazing, and you're doing a lot of very different things. The role is interesting because it's this unknowable kind of blank character, but there's so many sort of layers to the performance. What were the biggest challenges for you as an actor and as a performer doing this sort of meta role, which is all about performance? Was there sort of one scene or one aspect of the character that stands out to you as being particularly like complicated to wrangle?
I think I know Naqqash he didn't dictate to me what kind of performance he wanted, but the hardest part throughout was like fighting my instinct. And this character is so internal, and it stays internal until it doesn't. But that was like really hard to like hold that down. And there were takes where like I'd do something crazy just to like get out my system. But yeah, just like that restrained, measured approach was like so hard, especially when you know there's so much going on. He's just like internalizing it.
I think that's the one thing that people who don't like act or make films don't understand. Like the skill, the precision it takes to kind of do nothing is so like difficult. It's like the highest level of difficulty. It's kind of easy.
It's a silly job
to like scream and cry and be like, ah, you know, like and like do capital A acting. But to just like sit there and hold the space and do nothing and have the whole world of your inner life on your face is like, it's so incredibly difficult, and it's like, it's a real achievement.
It's a silly job.
I think that precision is something that is really interesting in the film, and also that stillness as well. Naqqash, you've kind of said before that you were inspired by British New Wave films and kind of how they dealt with this theme of masculinity throughout the ages. Yeah. What do you think your film is kind of tapping into in terms of British masculinity today? What are the different flavors that you're exploring?
Yeah, like I was thinking a lot about like, you know, like The Angry Young Man. There was this series of like films and plays after the war that really like represented where we were at culturally, that I thought was just really interesting to look back on, like people like Alan Bates and like Saturday Night, Sunday Morning and The Sporting Life, like those films, like they represent so much about their culture. And I was thinking like The Anxious Young Man is like today's representation, like the angry young man has dissolved into this like anxious young man. And I think there's something really interesting right now, just culturally, about like male passivity, like men on screen being passive. Like there's something quite radical about it to me.
What do you mean radical?
Like, I think we kind of, as a culture, like women who are passive. We like seeing women on screen and they're passive and we have no problem whatsoever. As soon as you put a man on screen and he's not moving the story forward and he's not really doing anything and the world around him is happening to him, there's this immediate frustration that I feel like we feel. So it's really interesting to like subvert how we represent masculinity in those like small ways. And I think here it's kind of like, I guess the stumbling, the non-performance. He's quite passive as a character, but I don't know how to put this really plainly in words. I just feel like there's something culturally that's being communicated right now through like the passive man on screen.
And do you think there's something in the culture that's making men feel not able to kind of take up space or not able to speak?
I think it's more about we live in a really anxious time right now, and I think the actor's body, the body of an actor, through different periods of time, you can like select a few actors from every time, not to get too academic, and they really represent their time in a way. Like everything is kind of in their body. Like you watch those British New Wave films, and you can see the kind of discontent in society, and the anger, and in all of those men's bodies. And I think right now there is this kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to theorize it whilst we're still in it, but it feels like there is an element of just pure anxiety. I think we're seeing. It's not a satisfying answer. Maybe ask me.
No, it's a really fascinating answer for a discombobulating time. The film articulates one of the things I thought it did brilliantly is that it articulates how it can feel to be put into a box based on your identity and to feel really kind of unable to escape from that box. How did you kind of make this film and cast this film without replicating the problem yourself, right? How were you able to kind of avoid those pitfalls that the film critiques?
Yeah, I think I was really aware of like inheriting all of these tools that are not necessarily made for me, and coming at film as an outsider.
Can you say what some of those tools were?
I mean, just like, again, I said I was an academic. I don't want to give here a lecture, but like the camera was really used like as a tool of subjugation to like send to the global south and take pictures of people and bring them back and like justify like, oh, look at these people, you know? And like the history of the camera is deeply colonial, you know? So I don't want to give a decolonizing lecture. I'll avoid that. But I was very aware that I hadn't gone to film school. I hadn't worked on a bunch of sets. So I had my own way of articulating things, and I really wanted to hold on to that and to every single thing that I was coming up against, questioning why. Like, why am I doing this? Like, for example, the 3-act structure, like when you're writing a script, I was like, I don't need to do that. I can do what I want to do. And I think filmmaking is a real act of invention. And I think everything you're doing, you can either choose to invent or inherit. And some things you can inherit and they can be great, you know? They work really well. They work for you. And some things you just have to interrogate politically, socially, and think about what you're doing, what your responsibility is. And I think I'm really interested in like the politics of like abolition. Like I was reading a lot of like Malcolm X and Angela Davis when I was writing this. Yes, we have some abolitionists here. Okay, and I was thinking a lot about the difference between like seeing and looking, and like trying to figure out how to create like an ethical framework of work whilst making work and not being extractive. You don't have answers though. I don't have any of these answers. I think it's just like an engagement I'm in with the people I'm collaborating with and interrogating these ideas and making sure you're not perpetuating the same stuff that you're critiquing.
Something that I thought was very striking about the film was the sound design. It's so kind of creepy and uncomfortable and uncanny. How did you describe to your sound designer what you wanted the film to sound and feel like? How did you articulate that?
Firstly, Paul Davies, who did the sound of this film, is like one of my favorite artists. Before I met him, I remember I went to see You Were Never Really Here. He does I think he does all of Lynn Ramsey's work. And I was so taken by how violent the sound design was and just the pure craft of the sound design. So I reached out to him and was like, I love your work. I would love for you to do this film. And he did. And I was like, whoa, maybe the script is good. This is cool. He wants to do this film. But I write in sound. Like I think a lot about everything, but I think a lot more about sound sometimes than visual. And I think there was such a violence within this film. And I think sound is almost like the unconscious mind of the film. Like you're communicating so much that you're not necessarily visually communicating. And it's like kind of like the underbelly of the film. And we talked a lot about like, so for example, when the photographer is taking photos of Aiden, Nabhaan's character, instead of using clicking effect, we used gunshots. Because I was reading a lot about, like I wanted to put in some of the politics in the creative decision making. But again, I'm going to risk the temptation to give you a lecture all about that and just say Paul Davies is incredible.
Could we have some house lights, please, so we can ask some questions?
Let's see your faces.
We can't see anybody from here.
Yo, you lot are pretty.
Have we? I'm going to put my glasses on. Have we got some roving mics? Yes, wonderful. Okay, let's take the first question. Stick your hands up. Okay, I can see you right in front of me, so if you just hang on for the mics, everyone can hear you. Sorry to make you run.
I like your jumper, the orange one. Cool jumper. Yeah, you look well dressed as well.
Acts of looking, acts of being seen.
Hello. So I just had a quick question because, Nabhaan, you mentioned about the naming of Aiden. So my question's more for Naqqash. Obviously, I've only watched this once, but when watching it, I think that Conrad and Bo are never actually named by the other characters. So I wanted to ask about your decision-making in that, because you said naming was really, really important, but I think the only character we hear a name of is Aiden, and then the mention of Kyle, the character, as far as I'm aware, obviously.
Yeah. By the way, I don't have my glasses. Can you just wave at me? Right. Sorry. Hey, I'm like, I don't think it's coming from there. Hey.
Slap bang in the middle, also.
Yeah. No one in the script had names. Aiden had a name because this is, to me, is a post-colonial fairy tale, and I wanted to call Aiden something that had to do with the British Empire. And Aiden is a place in Yemen that was formerly occupied by the British Empire. So I picked that as a name. And then...
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and then Amir was just playing actor C for the longest time. And then I just said to Amir, let's just pick a name. So do you want to pick a name? And we picked a name after the film, like a year after the film finished. Because we liked how Conrad sounded like a con. We're like, let's just go for this. And Rory, I was like, it's weird for you calling him actor B. And he was like, yes, it's weird for me. So we were like, okay, let's pick someone to do with like Irish poetry. And we were looking at like Irish poets. And we went with, is it Ivana Boland? I'm forgetting the name. She's an Irish poet. And we took that. But also like... I really wanted it to be like an Irish literary name because all three of them are kind of like linked with the British Empire, with him being Irish and the three of them being like former subjects in a different time. But again, I keep giving proper academic answers. Why?
I thought that Conrad was academic because of Conrad Heart of Darkness.
Because of...
Like Heart of Darkness, that Conrad's the writer.
Oh yeah, like Joseph.
Yeah, as in like...
Maybe.
Colonial...
That makes me sound so smart. I'm gonna say yeah. I've read Heart of Darkness.
I feel like that was mentioned though.
Hey?
Conrad. It was like the first thing everyone.
Maybe.
Just take the credit.
Do we have
some
some
credit?
questions?
I did. I
film,
studied
take the
English,
credit.
so maybe.
Yes, more?
People in Q&As make me sound so much smarter.
Right.
Right?
They're like, oh, I read this
yes,
into it.
up
And you're
here.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. Oh, that is really powerful.
Hey.
I wanted to ask about the sequence with Joanna and that movement through grief and exploiting other people to move through your own feelings. And it really touched me and moved me in terms of obviously also hearing men expressing grief so animalistically. I just kind of wanted to ask you both about the importance of that sequence and how it felt to incorporate it. Yeah.
Firstly, Josie Walker is incredible. Love her, the actor who plays Joanna. Yeah, it's kind of like the film becomes like a bit of a drama for a bit. I don't know what to really say about that.
Maybe something that you could talk about is sort of how you landed on that device as a way of exploring all of these really kind of intense, complicated emotions.
Well, I think there's two sides to it. The first side, I wanted to have this idea that, under capitalism, we can solve everything, including our problems. And then I thought, it'd be really interesting for this woman to be paying this person to work through her work. But then also there's something quite colonial about that and extractive. And I just thought that was in line with the rest of the film. And also, he's rendered just a body, but it's like his most interesting job. And then the other side was me being like, yeah, I could do a drama.
And Nabhaan, do you want to say how that felt for you to kind of do that scene?
Yeah, Josie's amazing. That's the one when we did have the script that was like, oh, okay. We're going some places. And there were a few scenes like that, but that sequence in particular, I don't know if this is politically correct to say, but someone described it at some point as emotional prostitution. And like, yeah, it was like, fuck yeah, like that's kind of what it is. And
Well, it's that like exchange of
yeah.
intimacy, right? The transaction is
Yeah.
made really explicit. And I thought it was interesting because it sort of provoked me to think about sort of in acting generally outside of that framework, how much of it is a transaction then? How icky is it?
We talked a
in that
lot about that.
context?
Like, but one of the biggest references, not to interrupt, was that Clute, Jane Fonda in Clute. Like, yeah.
Shout out Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's that, but it's also people's understanding of acting. Like a lot of people say, oh, you're an actor, like, what's it like to become another person? And I think what this film is, and I personally feel that it's like misjudgment of like what the job entails. But we kind of had fun with that, you know? We were like, what if someone took that literally and took it to the extreme? And at the point where the sequence happens in the film, it's in a really critical point, and that's a really gross example of that being done that way.
It's a great moment. Do we have any questions near the back by any chance? No? Near the front? Yes, just down the front.
I like the light. It's cool.
Thank you. I really loved the film. I feel a bit like it was like a fever dream, so I'm just kind of like
I'll
processing
take that.
everything.
Straight from the pitch doc. He'll be happy with that.
But the big question is like, what does the bee represent?
I have a phobia of bees, so I think he was just trolling me.
I am a very caring, considerate, empathetic director. I would never do that to you. We had a hand double because this guy couldn't be on set on the day with the bees.
They sent me a picture of like 100 brown hands. I was like, which one's you? I was like, I don't want to think about this right now.
That's actually true. The bee, like, there was a lot in the script. That storyline kind of got cut. Next door, there were like 3 women who were harvesting bees. And there was a whole sequence with bees, and I did cut that out. There's loads of like metaphorical labyrinths in this film, and I think a lot about labor. I think this is a real film about like just the cost of labor and just people's work. And you see the bee everywhere in the city as well, don't you? I think unconsciously, it's probably thinking about bees. Do you know what it is? A lot of the time, I'm very, very like, I think about all of my decisions and everything's intentional, but there's this certain acceptance that I have that I don't understand a lot of the things that I write or I'm trying to say. And I'm so interested in like the unconscious mind and like just not overly intellectualizing things, but it doesn't sound like I would be like that, but I am. So, I mean, the bee represents whatever you want it to represent, you know?
We kind of knew when certain symbols in the film, like certain motifs, certain symbols, bee being one of them, just felt poignant and felt potent. And when we had that feeling, we just kind of looked at each other and went, yeah, let's keep that in. We don't have to know exactly what it represents. But here's a fun fact about the bee in the film. So no bees were harmed. That bee wasn't, actually killed.
The bee's also called Sylvia Plath, by the way. We named her. I shouldn't tell people that.
I didn't know that. Wow, this is informative. So before the hand double thing, they wanted me to do the scene with the bee, and I'm like, no, I have a phobia. Is there any way I can not do it? And they were like, we know what we do. We'll do the scene, but we'll get a queen bee instead of a worker bee, because a queen bee is less likely to sting you. And I was like, no, that defeats the whole purpose of I have a phobia. It's irrational. But we settled on the hand double.
Bees don't work at night, and it was a night shoot that day, and like they just like, you put them on the wall, the trainer put them on the wall, and the bee would just drop. So
Labor.
We could all learn something from that, maybe.
They were the most difficult actor.
Bees don't work at night. Labor.
Got time for 1 or 2 more. Don't be shy. It's quite hard to see also. Yes, okay, at the back.
It's coming.
I had a question on the funny bits. Obviously, you did a lot of preparatory work. You read a lot. You worked on it a lot, and it really shows. The funny bits, they kind of they're clever, but not too clever. They're relatable, and I just wondered what the process was in terms of coming up with the funny bits, especially with the physical comedy and all that.
I'm just a funny guy, I say. just comes out that way. And so this guy's not bad as well. He's funny too.
Well, I feel like Amir and Rory were like so entertaining to watch. It was just takes where we just roll, and a lot of their conversation is improvised. So their little like wry exchanges they have it's like so mundane, but it's like really funny at the same time. I really enjoyed watching them.
I think comedy is so political as well, you know. It's like the most political tool we have as like writers. And I think I'm really interested in like discomfort and like making people feel a little bit uncomfortable, because I think we kind of check ourselves when we laugh in films sometimes. So
Why did you want to create that feeling of discomfort?
I wanted people to feel unsafe, respectfully.
But like we're feeling it right now. I think it goes beyond like the feeling we're having in this country and like the aftermath of election. I think it's like beyond who we elect as like our leaders. We've had this feeling for a few years now, and there's like certain moments in time and certain like events that kind of bookmark it. But I think we've had this feeling that like shit's crazy right now. Like I'm not the only one feeling this right now, and I know that. So we just wanted to just offer up that discomfort. Again, like no answers here, but you know, like here's that discomfort, and let's stay in it.
Can you imagine how insufferable this film would be if it wasn't funny? I'd switch that off. Like, no.
We'll take one last question. Yes. Oh, over here, sorry. Well, we'll take them both.
You are earning your money today. Thank you.
No, getting the steps in. Wait, who's it going to?
Just over here first.
Are you guys still with me? Are you all right? Yeah? Cool.
Hi.
Hey.
Thanks so much for that. Really enjoyed.
Thank you.
I just was having some musings just then, and I really related to what one of my co-question askers said around the fever dream. I wanted to see if you saw any relevance in how I perceived what happened on screen. In my head, Conrad isn't real, is a figment of the imagination, and the act of stabbing is the act of stepping into the persona of Conrad, because obviously then Doctor disappears into the washing machine like nothing happened.
Ooh, in this essay, I will. That's a great reading. I think, you know what, like, I am one of those people that I think a film is a real conversation, and I think like you are probably more valid than my interpretation. I think when you're making a film, like, you're giving up, you're offering people up to invite themselves to perceive whatever the film is, and I think an audience is smarter than the director, and an audience should have it's like giving people all of the stuff to make a recipe and being like, whatever you make is fine. So I'm really hesitant to like give a final answer on that, but Amir is like an incredibly smart actor, and together what we did was like he played takes where he's playing a real person, and then he played takes where he's playing an imagined person. And I think that kind of ease he has in the film, he delivers something really uncanny in all of his choices. And I mean, what's more terrifying than the projection people project onto you and how you exist in their imagination, you know? So I think I'm kind of obsessed with that as an idea, but a lot of people have said that, like, in Q&As, like, nobody's real in this film. Is it all in his head? And I think that's a really fascinating space, and so thank you for offering that interpretation. And I think
He's not going to give you a definitive answer, but
he's into the reading.
great reading.
Thank you so much.
We're going to take the last question here, so better make it good. No pressure.
Honestly, I ran away from academia one circus and joined the other circus, the film industry.
Thanks so much. Whoa, that's cool. So thanks.
What a power, isn't it?
It's hot.
Yeah, I
Mad.
feel like I want to sing the NTS theme tune, but I won't. NTS. Sorry. It's a life goal of mine to do that. So that was my question. Thank you so much. So Naqqash, that was amazing.
Thank you.
You kind of, in the first question, you spoke about the moral tales and the kind of like the fairy tale of the film. That sort of, to me, reminded me of Eric Romer's 6 Moral Tales.
Yes.
And I guess sort of nodding to sort of what Simran was sort of talking about before with that, like evoking that image of the people in the white t-shirt, and that was kind of, you almost wrote the film with that image first in mind. What's next? Is there more tales? Is there more images you have? And is there something maybe you learnt from this film that you want to carry onto the next?
I would love to make an Eric Romer film, just people vibing, doing nothing. That'd be amazing. Did you say, what am I doing next? Like,
Yeah,
Or
and
what
like
kind
maybe
of
this kind of
project
film.
do you want to make
It's
next?
a good question, right? I don't know. You got ideas?
Thank you so much.
What do you guys want to see? I mean, like, what
No,
day
see,
do you
my
want?
whole thing is I need to stop caring about all these people. Like, I go to Q&As and think what they want me to make, and I should just make what I want to make, right?
Yes, also.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, respectfully. I'm just writing right now and like trying to not put pressure on myself, and I think it's important for me to like forget all of this. This is amazing as it is for people to be like, oh, your film's cool. I'm like, oh, amazing, thank you. And just like think of what I want to do. I think it's a real privilege to be an artist and to have room and time and space to like articulate things that feel really personal and urgent to you. And I just want to keep like making stuff, especially with my friends, like I'm excited. I don't have any set ideas of what I'm doing next. I'm like trying to create a generative space for myself and just give myself time to think, because I think it's really important. Like, we all live on these like weird deadlines that, oh, I'm this age now, or I'm doing this and I'm not really doing anything. Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? And it's like, we need to just like abolish that voice. Back to abolition. Abolish that voice in our head and allow ourselves room and time and space to like shut the noise off and think about what we want to do. So,
Well, you might be able to forget about the film, but I don't think anybody in this room will be forgetting about it anytime soon. And if you liked it, you should definitely tell people about it. It's getting a cinema release on the 13th of September. So you've got time to spread the word.
thank you.
And yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you guys so much. This has been so special as well, like to be like here, This is like where I'm from. I wrote the film on these streets, like in my notes app. So it's really special that you guys decided to spend this night with us and see the film. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.